You're listening to Boomers Today with your host, Frank Sampson.
Well, welcome to Boomers Today. I'm your host, Frank Sampson. Of course, each week we bring you important and very useful information on issues facing baby boomers, their parents, and other loved ones. Again, I want to thank all of you, as I do each and every week, for your support. Our listeners are growing each and every day, and it's because of all of you. So many of you share individual podcasts with friends and family. Others share our entire show, and we appreciate that. And we know why our listeners are growing is because we have wonderful guests, and we're not going to disappoint you today. After being a primary caregiver for her mother for over 6 years, author Lynn Abaté Johnson understands the typhoon of emotions and responsibilities that come with caring for a loved one. Like most caregivers, Lynn juggled caregiving duties with a full-time career. In her daily life, she's a business consultant and global community builder. Her book, Out of Love, A Daughter's Journey with Her Mom to the End, provides care for family caregivers by giving them the emotional and logistical support they need, even when they are working in high pressure. So, Lynn, thank you so much for joining us on Boomers today. Such an important subject.
Thank you for having me, Frank. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so I'd like to just start out by asking. I know you've written this book. I mentioned to you that I wrote a book, which is just such a great feeling of writing a book, and I know how much time and effort goes into that. So I'd love to hear more about kind of your catalyst for writing the book, and certainly share any information you would like about the book.
Sure, thank you. I always say that the book is my journey, my personal journey of transformation through caregiving and grief. And that wouldn't have happened without my mom's initial diagnosis in 2011. She was diagnosed with stage 3C ovarian cancer. And she was always on this earth to teach us. She was the type of mom who always set a great example. And so her cancer diagnosis was no different. She was here to teach us, how to stand up and take care of business. Basically, I kind of joke sometimes that we created a business around her cancer diagnosis. And that's because we're from a very big ethnic family. We were always entrepreneurs. And I started making journal entries online every day for family members and friends near and far who wanted to be updated on the daily details of my mom's care. So that's how each of the chapters in my book starts out, with an excerpt from the journal entry, and then my perspective and my recollection and kind of the hindsight perspective of what I was feeling and what I was going through at the time, and how I've learned since then how we can actually transform our own lives through that journey of caregiving and grief.
Yeah, that's a wonderful story. So, I know that you yourself, as I mentioned, you're been a business consultant. How did talk about managing that career as well as dealing with your mom in that situation? Because I know that we have, I'm sure, a lot of listeners that are dealing with this and working. And what recommendations can you give to them? And just tell us about your journey.
Yeah, I talk about this a little bit in the book about how I was part of a marketing team for an internet startup in Silicon Valley at the time in 2011. And that at that time, I didn't feel safe enough to reveal every detail of what was going on in my personal life. In fact, I kept it from the founders. There were 3 founders of the company, and I did not let them know. I confided in a couple of trusted colleagues. But other than that, I didn't feel that I had the support at work to be also working in my personal life on, taking care of my mom. And so fortunately, I was able to work remotely, and that was always the case. So it wasn't any different. I was just working. Little did my bosses know that I was working in hospital rooms and ICU waiting rooms and emergency departments whenever we had to take my mom into emergency. And so I just kept it very on the down low, that was even going on. I always say it sounds a little dramatic, but I was leading a double life. And so what I learned since then is that I would do it very differently now. And in fact,
How so? Tell us more on how you do it differently.
yeah, so today I would find those allies at work. I would find people that I did trust, or people I would start asking questions. I've become a lot more curious, especially, I guess, through those years, on the cancer roller coaster, as I call it, and especially in the last many years since my mom died. She died in 2017. So I've become more curious, and that's what I would lead with at work today. I would start asking around, of my colleagues, what's going on in your life and how are you really? And I would invite people to tell their stories, because I really believe that business is personal. I grew up, and I'm half Sicilian, and my family would say, you don't bring your personal life anywhere, and you don't tell, any secrets. And by that, they meant, you don't reveal what's going on in your life, really.
Right. Yeah, that's a lot of old school thinking and a lot of families of that.
A
Yeah.
lot of old
Yeah.
school thinking.
Right.
And so
Right.
since I was raised that way, it was natural that I kept things to myself, and I became, the independent person that I always was. And I can do this myself. I don't need any help. And so now I invite people in my life, whether I know them really well or not. I invite them to open up and talk about what's going on in their lives, because I really believe that today, more than ever, we need community. We need connection. Human beings have felt so disconnected for so many years. And I think that my book is a conversation starter about family caregiving, and it's really providing care for the caregivers, and emotional care and support, and letting people know that you're not alone, and also logistical support. So I created, because I'm a systems person, and I created systems and structures around my mom's cancer diagnosis and that journey that we were on. So even on my website, I offer those for free. People can go in and they can copy these systems and documents and checklists and things that we used to help us with the daily logistics. So to helping human beings feel more in community, connected, open up the lines of communication. And that's what I exist for today. That's why I'm here today, is to draw that out in other people. And so I think that more and more, and I know that you're doing this type of work too with the businesses that you work with, is to open up possibilities. Think about ways that businesses can not only be aware of what's going on in their cultures, but also give real solutions. There was a statistic I saw recently that said that 80% of all people who need care are being cared for by a family caregiver, and that more and more women are leaving the workforce. And two reasons is because there's a lack of paid leave, and there's also a high cost of childcare. So for women, especially, I think, who are responsible for so many things, it's important to be aware of it, and then also to provide some support, some real support, some financial support, and the moral support. There's so many different ways, and I think that we need to get creative in today's day and age. We need to get more and more creative and brainstorm together. So that's what I'm here for.
Yeah. No, that's Very important point. So I know that, you're talking about statistics. One thing we know that absenteeism is on the rise at companies due to having to care for a parent or other loved one. And a term that you're probably familiar with, but like I wasn't familiar with when it was first brought up, was called presenteeism is on the rise. Presenteeism being that they're working, but they're not concentrating.
Oh, the quiet quitting,
That's,
Yeah.
yeah, is that what you call quiet quitting? Yeah. So,
Yes.
yeah, so, that's happening. And I think that it appears to be happening because, the employee of the company is not wanting to tell their superiors that they're having to take time off for this. They're worried about, what's the future of their job. They're just, so companies just need to be able to build a culture around this and provide that type of support because it's happening. If a
Yeah.
company says this, well, I haven't heard of anything happening in my company. There's the problem.
Mhm.
Because it is happening at their company. It's happening at everybody's company. So
Yes, and I mean, my approach would be more of an indirect approach at first. I wouldn't go straight to the C level.
right.
Um, I would create community within, like I said earlier, with my colleagues, and then create some kind of workforce conversations that then could ripple up or ripple out to the managers, the directors, and through to the C level. Because unless you have somebody, and you know, it's so prevalent today that so many of us are taking care of loved ones at home, um, that you could find somebody on the C level, you could find somebody on a manager or director level that is completely relating to what you're going through at the time.
Totally agree. Yeah. I mean, uh, that happens all the time when, we talk to companies. I don't have to get into a whole lot of detail. We talk to companies about, the program that we provide.
Mhm.
Um, if we are talking to a C-level person who's going through it, it's like, yeah, we need to work together. We need your help, So uh,
Yeah.
anybody that's going through it, they get it.
I
They
think,
get it.
yeah. And I think that those people, all of those humans, and, doesn't matter, man, woman, anything, it doesn't matter. I think, will feel relieved in a sense when we start to bring these conversations up and let them say what's going on. You know, I'm out to disrupt LinkedIn, for example. I'm a digital marketer. I'm on LinkedIn and I'm talking about things on LinkedIn that a lot of people don't want to talk about or won't talk about because they don't think it's quote unquote professional. And as I said before, business is personal. How can you show up as your whole self at work if you're hiding part of your life?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, you brought up providing emotional and logistical support for caregivers. You mentioned that. Can you, give us a little more information or thoughts regarding that? I'm sure you talk about it in your book. We don't want to give everything away, but
Yeah.
maybe you
And
give us,
well,
shed a little light on that subject matter, which I think
sure.
is
In the
so
book,
important.
there are examples of documents that I created to help us navigate through the day to day. One example, because we were dealing with cancer, but this could be for any diagnosis: Alzheimer's, dementia, even your kid gets in a motorcycle accident or something. You can adapt these things, but this one checklist was for chemo days. Like, what would you take to the chemo center, the chemo treatment center on chemo days? And so we created a list that was very specific to my mom and her needs and her comfort items and all of the things that we thought we needed, because we had never experienced anything like this before. So we viewed it as a business and we viewed it as kind of like going on a trip somewhere. and tried to think about what are we going to need, a special neck pillow or headphones, noise canceling headphones. So really specific things that were comfort items for my mom to help her relax. It's always a scary time. I don't care what the diagnosis or what the circumstance is. It's always scary, especially initially when families are dealing with something that's unknown. And so I'm really purposeful when it comes to creating systems and structures that can make a difference for us, because I know that the emotions are going to be there. We all know that we're going to be feeling so many different things that we've maybe never felt before. And so I'd like to take care of the things that we can somewhat control. We can't control everything. We certainly can't control the outcomes to every extent. But what we can control, we need to get in there and just write it down. So, another one of the things that we did was that we kept a notebook. So for any hospital stays, any doctor's visits, anything like that at all, first of all, nobody went alone. And second of all, we'd have this notebook that we drew lines like columns, and then we would write very specific details, the date, the medical professional's name, the quantity of whatever medications were being administered. We would ask questions about, what are the contraindications? We never knew that word before, but that means what medications should not be mixed with this medication, or even some of the healthy supplements that my mom was taking. Are there any contraindications for even the healthy supplements that we're taking along the way? So just different things like that. And as I mentioned on my website, which is LynnAbatéJohnsonBook.com, people can get resources and tap into that and kind of adapt it to whatever your personal situation is at any given time.
Yeah. Did you find you got good advice, professional medical advice regarding your mom's medications and all of that?
Yeah. And, to be fair, the doctors, they don't know everything. They know a lot. They just don't know everything, especially in the realm of natural care. So we did kind of a hybrid approach, the Eastern and the Western medicine, because we are very concerned with what we do put into our bodies. And my mom's system was extremely sensitive. She was a tiny little woman. And besides that, she barely even took an aspirin. She was pretty much never sick a day in her life. It used to be a joke that her oncologist said, well, other than this cancer, you're as healthy as they come. She never even got a cold during all of those 6 years.
Wow.
And so, yeah, the doctors do the best they can. I have a new respect now that I did not have before, because I had all kinds of judgments and prejudgments and opinions about the medical profession. And I'm telling you, it's got to be a mix for us. It had to be a good blend of the Eastern and the Western. And we were actually kind of teaching the doctors, we were showing them supplements that we were doing, and nutritional, smoothies and things like that. And because the docs are tired, exhausted, worn out, getting sick as well. So they're not immune to the same things. They're humans. And so we would share information. And some were receptive, Frank, to be honest, and some were not.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I think that my mom and the type of woman that she was, she attracted some really great medical care professionals. And, even at the end when we had hospice, they were amazing. I don't know what we would have done without them. And they came in with all kinds of medications and, the liquid morphine and everything. But by that time, 6 years later, we were onto cannabis and we were using that. And my mom died without any drugs in her system. It was just the cannabis that was helping her with all of the pain and everything else that we were experiencing with her.
Yeah. So Lynn, we're going to take a real quick break. I promise. I'm going to come back in 30 seconds. Just want to recognize our sponsor. And then when I come back, we could, talk about your book and how people could get it. And also, I just want to, touch on dealing with the whole grief situation. So when we come back, we'll talk about that. Okay.
Sounds good.
Great. So do you know anybody who may be concerned about an older driver? Well, Senior Care Authority's Beyond Driving with Dignity program is a facilitated self-assessment program for older drivers. This program has been designed to serve as a vital tool to facilitate older drivers and their families as they make the appropriate decisions regarding the future of one's safe driving career. If the individual is a safe driver, an advisor will provide him or her with strategies on how to remain a safe driver as they progress through the aging process. If driving retirement is the appropriate decision, then the individual and their family are offered possible alternatives, resources, and a specific plan to ensure a smooth and successful transition from the driver's seat to the passenger seat. So to learn more, go to www.beyonddrivingwithdignity.com or call 877-907-8841 to talk with a Senior Care Authority advisor in your area. We're back with author Lynn Abaté Johnson, and who has written the book Out of Love, A Daughter's Journey with Her Mom to the End. So Lynn, tell us a little more about the book and how people could get it. Anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, thank you for that. My book is available wherever you like to get your books. I'm a big proponent for the small mom and pop bookshops, even in your town. You can ask for it at libraries. I know of many libraries in the areas where I've lived and where my mom lived and died, in the Sonoma area, and San Diego County libraries have my books, have my book. And also you can get it online wherever you like to buy your books, Goodreads, Amazon, all the usual suspects.
Great. And how could they learn more about what you're doing? And is it basically that it's basically talking about the book, Lynn Abaté Johnson book.com?
AbatéJohnsonBook.com.
Great.
And then we also have a free chapter for your audience, for your listeners. If they'd like to download either a PDF or an audio file, I've got a chapter there for them at lynnabatéjohnsonbook.com/free chapter, FREECHAPTER, free chapter.
Great. Perfect. So we're going to also put it in the notes if people want to see that link in the notes as well. So of the podcast. So talk to us just about the grief part of what you had to deal with, and any suggestions or recommendations you could give to our listeners, either preparing for that, dealing with that. I know that's a big subject matter and we only have a few minutes left, but share with us your thoughts there.
Well, I had a bit of a, I call it a luxury because we had more time with my mom. It wasn't a sudden thing. You know, my mom lasted 6 years, above and beyond what the statistics indicated. So when I went through the grief counseling, which hospice provided for all 5 of us, of my mom's children, the counselor said, "Oh, it sounds like you've done some anticipatory grieving." And I never knew that was a thing, just like I never knew family caregiving was a thing. But anticipatory grieving is a thing. So what I did while my mom was still alive is I made a point to treat each situation as if it were the last. You know, I made sure that, you know, whatever celebration we were having, whatever holiday, I kind of future tripped in my own head. I didn't say anything out loud, but I said, "Lynn, this could be the last time." So, you know, instead of thinking about, you know, petty little things that bugged me, I would have more grace. I would have more patience. And I think that this really helped me in the end, and in the years since my mom died, which was May 1st, 2017. And I was able to be with my mom when she took her last breath. So that was another, what I call the gift of the cancer, was that I was able to be with her. And I realized not every daughter has a great relationship with their mother, or even has a great mother. So, I'm very considerate and aware and cognizant that my situation is maybe unique and different than some of your listeners. However, I still think there are things that we can do for ourselves in caring for ourselves. And so my book, being kind of subtitled Care for the Caregiver, is that it's protecting your nervous system, protecting your energy, getting help, asking for help, being more patient with yourself and others, trusting yourself and others, finding community, finding connections and people that can really support you and shore you up, especially when you're having a down day. We have these roller coaster days and months and years. And, fortunately, I have people in my life that when I'm feeling strong, they're the ones that are down. When I'm down, they're feeling strong. And so I've built this community around me, and even in my work life, of people who we can support each other through all of the ups and downs that are happening through the grief process, because the grief process just keeps on going. And as I always say, life just keeps getting lifey, right?
Yeah.
Even in death,
Right,
even
right.
when we lose people.
Well, with that, I mean, that was beautifully said, and I want to thank you so much for joining us today on Boomers Today. We'd love to have you back in the future, and best of luck with your book as well.
Thank you so much. I'd love to come back anytime, Frank.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody. Be safe, and we'll talk to everybody next week.
You've been listening to Boomers Today with Frank Sampson. To learn more about today's show, visit boomerstodayradio.com and join us next time for another edition of Boomers Today.